I think how things will develop depends tremendously on two key actors. One is President Biden and the US administration. The other is Mullah Barada and the other leaders of the Taliban. There is a small possibility that the two sides will see it in their interests to compromise to some extent, to collaborate, to respect each other's leverage over the other on, in the case of the Taliban, drugs, terrorism, and migration, and in the case of the Americans, the potential for fomenting continued civil war and very large amounts of Afghan money that the new Taliban administration require. If they can find some uneasy truce, then the future looks a little more hopeful than a very isolated, defiant, truculent Afghanistan under pressure from Western sanctions.
So can I ask you now sort of to speculate, and I know it's very difficult for you to speculate, but I'm wondering about whether the Taliban will reach out to the Western world, certainly economically. So much cash, so much money has gone missing because of endemic corruption. And there's no doubt the government and the army was riddled with endemic corruption. But they will have to, if they want to build a state, they're going to have to reach out economically, aren't they?
I think they will certainly try. I mean, they'd be crazy not to. The United States effectively has a block on IMF loans, World Bank funding, and holds, as I understand it, a large percentage of total Afghan cash reserves, which are held outside the country. So Taliban are bound to try, I think, and that does give Washington in particular a good deal of leverage. I suppose the Taliban will be hoping that if that does not work, friends like China will help to bail them out. But I believe, I've already commented on this, that there are figures within the Taliban leadership who would genuinely like a significantly different relationship with the West and with the United States. They're not going to compromise on their Islamic values as they understand them, but they don't have to host international terrorism. They don't have to pump drugs abroad if they're rewarded for economic alternatives to the poppy crop. They can create the incentives to keep the Afghan population in Afghanistan rather than wanting to flee abroad to the West. And those things would arguably be in Taliban interest if they want to be a long-term government that lasts more than the 5 years they managed last time round.
You mentioned who they will live alongside, and I'm thinking ISIS-K, I'm thinking Al-Qaeda, and the big concern by some analysts is that Afghanistan could become a haven for international Islamist terrorism. Can you see the Taliban living alongside ISIS-K and Al-Qaeda as they are roughly at the moment?
It's certainly possible. They did it before with Al-Qaeda. I'm aware that there are murky links between elements of the Taliban, for example, the Haqqani group, and ISIS Khorasan, the ISK group that were responsible for the terrorist bombing at the gates of Kabul airport. But against that, ISK do represent a threat to Taliban authority themselves. They would be very happy to transplant the Taliban emirate with a ISK caliphate. And as I've observed, hosting Al-Qaeda wasn't a big success for the Taliban last time round. So I think there is scope for very pragmatic, very clear-eyed, realist collaboration with the Taliban by the international community that helps them to help the rest of us keep international terrorism out of Afghanistan, bear down on the drugs trade, create the positive incentives for Afghans not to become a migrant flood. But it does take both sides to compromise, and I simply can't judge whether that's going to be possible.
Sir Adam Thomson, many thanks to you for joining us on The Agenda.
Thank you.